fully complete Persona 3 Reload. It took me 80 hours and 36 minutes. That's with a lot of saves coming, so it's probably closer to like 82 or 83 hours. And I 100% the game. Everything except for the Request 100 boss fight, which I won't spoil or anything, but it's an optional boss fight in the game. I did all of the requests other than that, and I maxed out every social link in the game. So, uh, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the pros, the cons, and then my final rating of the game. But spoiler alert for the review. No spoilers for the actual game, but spoiler alert for the review. I do indeed think that this is probably now the best remake that's ever been made. But let's get into why. Okay. The first pro is that visually every single thing in the game has been completely redone from Persona 3 FES and Persona 3 Portable. And I have a big history with the Persona games. I love the Persona series, and I have well over 1,000 hours in the game, in all of the game. And I gotta say, the visuals in this are just the best out of all of the games. Like, Persona 5 Royal has a lot of really clean visuals, and this game is just a little bit better. And I've never really been one that cares about UI, or like design and stuff like that. But I mean, when you're looking at the game, it's just so hyper stylized. The UI is so clean, the animations are so extremely smooth on everything. You just can't deny it. Even if you're like me and you don't normally care about stuff like UI design, there's just no designing how fucking clean this game looks, man. It's just a pleasure to look at, even the menu. And I know that sounds silly, but it's true. It looks just absolutely phenomenal. And obviously everything is just completely redone. I also think the voice acting, I played in English, because I speak English. I had a couple people in the chat when I was streaming it be like, oh my god, you're not playing in Japanese? No, I do actually speak English, so, I like to hear my game most of the time. Especially, when you're streaming it and stuff. It's hard for me to, like, have a conversation with people while also having to read subtitles, stuff like that. But the English is very good. There's obviously some returning voices that you'll recognize. A couple times I was like, wait, that's the teacher from Persona 5. They have a couple of those voices, that voice actors that have been in the series before. But the voice acting is great, man. And I'll say especially Junpei. He stands out as just far and above everybody else. I mean, some of the screams and stuff that he does are just fucking phenomenal. They're really good. And another pro that I'll say kind of goes along with the voice acting, but fine a fucking lead. The social links in the game are fully voice acted. Every single one of the social links. If you haven't played, Persona before, essentially the game, you're a high school student, and the combat section is essentially Pokemon. You have these like monster pet-like characters called personas. You can see right there, like I could select one right there, Inugami, and they have abilities and stuff, and you can swap between them, and it's turn-based action. And then during the day portions of the game, the entire game is actually spread out days, and you can spend your after school doing an activity, and during the evening you can do an activity. And in these will range, you can choose whatever you want to do, but these will range from increasing your stats so other people will like you more, so you can form better relationships with other people, to the majority of the game, which is hanging out with people, talking with people, and building those bonds, which are called social links in the game. And that's essentially the like motive of all the Persona games, right? Is that like the bonds of friendship are what bring us together. It's all about, forming bonds with people. And previously in Persona games, it was really just like the first social link and the last social link were voice acted. And there's 10 levels to every social link, so obviously that's not really a lot, right? Well, in this game, thank God, all 10 interactions, all 10 social link levels are fully voice acted, and that does so much for the game, man. And I'm gonna be honest, after something like Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, with not exactly a AAA team and not exactly a AAA budget, and they have just every single thing fully voice acted and a bajillion lines of dialogue and stuff like that, I think a new precedent has been set, and I really do expect Persona games. They make a lot of money and they have quite a lot of budget. I really do expect them going forward to have far more voice acted stuff because it really does do wonders, actually. But yeah, so fully voice acted, and the voice acting is really, really good, actually. I can't think of a single character that I thought was bad other than, human beings doing dog sounds. That's always a little bit silly. But that's, what are you going to do? I guess they could have asked for Momo. I would have lent him so they could record some real dog sounds. But, oh, there we go. He's fucking time. But, yeah, I also think all of the gameplay changes are really good in the game. They have implemented a lot of the stuff from like Persona 5 Royal, like baton passes and stuff, passing your turn, but it's now just native to the gameplay, which I really like. They also have an entirely new mechanic called Theurgy, which is essentially a super bar that builds up. Each character has a different personality, so they have different things that are going to cause that bar to build up. For example, Yukari, she really likes helping people. So when she heals people, that's going to build her bar faster, right? And then once the bar builds up, they'll have this move. You can see it on screen here. Dear severe ice damage, right? And this character builds up by inflicting status ailment. So this whole mechanic is actually really fun. It's cool, and the animations are clean. Momo, that's enough. That's enough. Thank you. Okay, he's chiming in already. He wants to do the dog sounds. Sorry, man. Game's already shipped. So yeah, I think all the gameplay changes are the same, but maybe if you have a keen eye, you've realized that, or when you heard my playtime, you realized that I played this game on peaceful difficulty, which is not just easy mode, it's turbo easy mode. And the reason for that is I have, over 1,000 hours in the Persona series. I have played through Persona 4 Gold and Persona 5 Royal on the hardest difficulty. And I'm just kind of bored of the combat of these games. The combat boils down to, and you'll see it in this gameplay, the combat always boils down to spamming different various elements onto the enemy types until you figure out what they're weak to. You swap to a persona that has that element because you're going to have personas that have covered the whole wide range of elements, and you're going to spam those attacks out for their weakness, and then you're going to do the all-out attack. And that's essentially the gameplay in this. They do add some bells and whistles there to it, like the Theurgy mechanic, but at the end of the day, that is the combat of Persona. And I've just played so much of it that now I just kind of want to get to the meat and potatoes. I don't want to have to grind for hours upon hours so I can have the perfect persona and be a high enough level in order to beat a boss. Like I remember having to do it on the hardest difficulty for Persona 4 Golden. That was insane having to do that. So I just want to get to, why I'm actually playing the game, which for me is the story and it's the character. But yeah, I think that if you do really enjoy the gameplay of Persona, like the actual combat of Persona, they give you far more tools than ever before at your disposal, and I think it's quite good. And when it comes to things that they've remastered on top of, the combat and the voice acting and the visuals, they've done so many little things as well that will go under the radar for a lot of people. Previously, you didn't used to be able to build relationships really with the guy characters on your team because they figured, hey, why would you want to do that? You're a dude. You just want to hang out with the chicks on your team, right? Eventually, this was remedied because they gave the choice between a male and a female character, which is sadly not available in the game, but there's still plenty of ways to hang out, learn more about, and experience stuff with the male characters in the game. So that's like a really good change that they've done. They have visually diversified Tartarus an absolute shit ton. This used to just be so boring running through, and it was all practically looking the same. And now, it's very visually different every few, blocks that you go up. It's completely changing the visuals that you're seeing. And yeah, there's just tons of small little changes that I absolutely love that they did with the game that I think make it, like I said earlier, the best remake that we've ever seen. I mean, previously I would have said Resident Evil 2 remake was probably up there. Dead Space remake, I think, was done a little bit better, but a lot of people love Resident Evil 4 remake as well. But I think this takes the cake. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me go over the cons real quick. And honestly, the cons for the game that I have are just the cons that I have for like all of the Persona games that this game unfortunately just doesn't fix. Oh, I do want to say one really cool thing that they added is the ability to rewind. So if you make a decision and you don't like it, you can actually just rewind up to 2 entire days and just undo that. And that is such a cool addition. I'm really happy that they did that. An experienced Persona player will still use all 15 save slots just in case they mess something up. But now you can really spread those 15 save slots out, over the course of a couple of months, because you have the ability to rewind several days on top of that. And that's a really, really cool, like, little addition that they had. But anyway, one of the negatives that I don't like, and I don't like it for, like, any of the Persona games, is the inability to pause and save in dialogue. And this doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal until you get to some of the story sections of the game where there's cutscenes on top of cutscenes on top of dialogue on top of dialogue, and sometimes, voice crack there, sometimes it'll be, 20 minutes before you're playing again. And they still do have the feature, where you can press a button and it will fast forward through the dialogue and stuff like that. But come on, man, how hard is it to just make it so I can save in the middle of dialogue? Like, it's essentially a visual novel at this point, right? It's a voice acted visual novel for the dialogue and stuff like that. Just let us freaking save, man. It's so annoying being like, I had one moment where I had to get ready for work and it was like, I have 10 minutes, but I don't know how long this dialogue and the story bit is gonna go. Do I just, lose the 10 minutes I've already done of gameplay, or do I try and persevere and go on? And obviously you don't want to skip the dialogue and stuff like that, or skip the cutscenes. All of this could be remedied if they just allowed us to fucking save. And I also do, another complaint I have is that sometimes some of the fights do just feel kind of uninspired. I do think it will be a little polarizing because this game doesn't have any like gimmicks in Tartarus. I think it is just straight up like you're just going through floors of Tartarus. It's not like Persona 5 where there's all these like little gimmicks and stuff like that with all of the different mind palaces. It's very straightforward. I like that, but I think some people won't. Some people will like that diversity and like the puzzles and stuff like that Persona 5 palaces brought to the table. But I personally am fine with just going through levels of Tartarus, but I do just feel like some of the boss fights were uninspired. Like, how many times do we have to fight 5 enemies where they're all like weak to a different thing, and they're all like just buffing each other, and it's this game where you're just kind of spamming out attacks, and this attack heals this enemy, but this enemy's weak to it, right? They do that like 5 or 6 plus times in this game. So I do feel like some of the fights are just a little bit uninspired. And then, honestly, my biggest gripe with Persona 3, just in general, and this has always been my gripe with Persona 3, is I just find the narrative of the game to be the most generic out of 3, 4, and 5. You know, Persona 4, it's this really cool and interesting story about like going into TVs and there's like a serial killer, you know, there's a murder and you're trying to find the murderer, and it's someone in the cast of characters, right? It's kind of this whodunit, and it's really, really compelling. On top of, you know, introducing all the new characters, Persona 5, you know, you're a phantom thief. You're stealing people's hearts. You're changing bad people's minds. You're going into the deepest recesses of their thoughts, and you're, you know, kind of just figuring out what makes them tick and trying to fix it. Persona 3 is very straightforward. And, you know, I won't spoil anything, but it essentially just does come down to, like, you're the good guys and you're fighting the bad guys. One thing I do really like about Persona 3, though, is there is more discord and, you know, trouble that comes inside your group. There is, like, more infighting in your group, and I really like that because I've always just found it kind of unnatural that, you know, you're just this dude that shows up and is the best, and then every single person is just like, yeah, we love you and we follow you, right? I really do like that there's, like, some people will not be okay with that. Some people will be jealous. Some people will be upset that you are just, like, this Chad amongst Chads and you can just do anything. And I really like that in Persona 3, but I just find the overall narrative to be the most generic out of all of them. All the way through the game, towards even through the ending, I still felt that way, you know, the good ending. So those are really my only gripes with Persona 3. Reload. Overall, is this game worth your time? Is it worth your money? I mean, this game is, you know, on Game Pass day one. It's how I played it, and I think it's how a lot of people will end up playing it. For Game Pass, of course, it's worth your time. That value proposition is insane. You pay, what, $10 for a month of Game Pass, and you get a 100-hour game, you know, 80-hour game. That's a great deal. And I also think it's a great deal even for $70. I know the $70 price tag when it comes to a remake is like, ooh, we're paying $70 for a game that's already been made. I totally understand that, like, apprehension that some people have, but I personally just don't share it. I think that if they've put in the time and they've put in the effort to remake a game and just make it better, there's some things I still like more about, you know, Persona 3 Portable, and some things I still like more about Persona 3 FES. For example, why can't I join band? Why can't I join band? Voice crack, oh my god, that was a bad one. Where's that cute little girl? Oh my god, she was so adorable from the band club. Anyway, though, while there's some things, you know, that I like more in the originals, I think overall this is a much improved product. And I think it would be pretty difficult to actually argue against that fact. So for me, I think it is probably the best remake that's ever been made. I mean, it's just so substantial in everything that they've changed and added. It's insane. And I would give it a solid 9.5 out of 10 if you enjoy Persona games. You know, if you're on the edge, you're like, oh, I've never played a Persona game, definitely give it a try. I think this game is as accessible as Persona 5 now, due to this remake. But give it a try. I would say if you don't like Persona, if you played Persona 5 and you didn't like it, this game is not going to change your mind. It's still a very, I don't want to call it niche because so many fucking people love Persona, but it's still a very different game and a very different experience to other games. It's even a hard game to, like, explain to people. You're like, well, it's kind of like Pokemon, but it's also kind of like, you know, a visual novel in a way. Like, it's a difficult game to explain to people, but if you like it, you like it. And if you like previous Persona games, then you'll love this game. And realistically, you've probably already played it or you're still playing it now. So that's my thought process on it. I don't think it's quite to the level of Persona 4 or Persona 5. I just prefer those narratives more myself. But I still think the game is really, really good. And your time, even if I personally am not the biggest fan of the combat, that's just because I have so many hours in it, you know, and it's just I'm over it, you know. I'm over it for the combat. I'm here for the story. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see all of you in the next video or stream. Bye bye.